where there's a Mobile Bay breeze and magnolia trees, a walk down a calm eastern shore, sailboats in sight, a pelican's flight, dear Fairhope, Alabama, my heart is yours.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. This is the 10th season of the Fairhope Single Tax Lecture Series, so thank you for joining us. This is the third lecture tonight in the series. And since we're running a little bit late, I just want to briefly introduce both of our speakers. Mara Hunter is a history professor specializing in Russian and Eastern European history at the University of South Alabama. And you may recognize her from other programs that she's done for the World Affairs Roundtable through Ukraine history and Russian history there. So we're happy to have her tonight to talk about We Are Here and Hope Community and what she's working on there. She's also very involved in historic preservation in our community. So we have her to thank for a historic preservation commission now. It was in the works for a committee was in the works for about 30 years, and now finally we have an actual commission that's doing some great educational things, and I think we're going to hear more about that in the very near future. And I'm happy to maybe one day play a part in that. So, and so that's those are the two things she's up to. I wanted to actually mention one other thing about Mara, is that she created and taught a course at South about historic preservation, and was able to get some buildings nominated and put on the Alabama Historical Commission. Was able to get those buildings recognized as historic. So her students went through all of this research and then submitted this material to the Alabama Historical Commission, and they were recognized for their good work and for the historical significance of those buildings. So that's a really big deal, and that's just a great project that she started. That's briefly about Mara, and then I'm going to talk about Shawn Graham. I'm going to get his technical side out of the way first, what he does for a living. He's the head of the IT division and vice president of technology services for Xerox Business Solutions. So that's a lot. And yet, he has all this time for community service. Hang on one sec. So, yes, he works as an advisory board for the University of South Alabama Health Systems, the Mitchell Cancer Institute, focusing on driving better outcomes amongst African American patients. And he's also the treasurer, finance committee chairperson, and board member of the Baldwin Family Violence Shelter for Women and Families. So that's another thing that he's involved very much with. And he's also connected with the city and serves on a committee for the Fairhope Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee, helping to recognize housing challenges and looking for other inclusive opportunities for South Fairhope. And then I will just segue to, he's also the co-founder and president of Hope Community, a 501c3 organization that you're going to hear all about tonight, and I'm so happy to have them here, so please give them both a warm welcome.
Thank you. Can y'all hear me okay? Okay, so I feel very honored to present tonight in this lecture series, and I'm particularly honored to be presenting along Shawn Graham, who truly has done so much for Fairhope and South Fairhope, and so it's really exciting. And I realized that we're starting late due to some technical difficulties, so I'm going to accelerate. And Shawn says that he will, if I leave out anything important, he will incorporate that. So what I want to talk with you about today are a number of things. I'm limiting it to 3, and that is 3 products related to grants that we received working with Hope Community, and that is to build out the history of African American communities here in Fairhope. And I would like to say that my partner in crime is Vicki Graham, who is sitting right here, if you wanted to wave your hand. And we might throw it back to her at some point today, too. So We received 2 grants so far from Alabama Humanities Alliance to work with Hope Community and University of South Alabama. We received 1 grant to build the We Are Here webpage, which I'm going to show you. That grant also funded some oral histories, which I'll show you those also, where you can find them. And then we got a renewal this year with Hope Community to build out basically, I think we said that we would do more of the oral histories and also build out maybe a tour of African American historical sites online. And our focus is on sites that are listed on the historic register to begin with, and then we're also moving into some lesser known sites. So it's going to be inelegant here while I try and bring up our website. So these are our 3 sites, and I'm now going to just hop over to some tabs to show you what we did, and then I'll talk through them in a little bit. Okay, so that's going to be minimized. And here is the first one. So this is the first website that we built. That was before the grant, and that came out of a public forum that we organized with Clarice Hall Black and Gabriel Goldvuxen at the museum, and then the library was also a co-sponsor. And it was just an incredible event for anyone who was here. And what we did, and Clarice was a real driver of this, is she encouraged people to come out from South Fairhope and identify those places that they consider most historically significant. And a lot of these places are not listed on the National Historic Register. They're places that people identified as everyday, just really being meaningful for the community. And what I particularly like about this particular project is we mapped it out, and of course the map here with the sites that people identify as significant coincide with historic neighborhoods, and if there is ever an effort to develop a historical black district or an African American district, then we sort of have built the foundation with the community if they want. And so the way this site works, if you ever would like to move through it, is we just clicking on some places that used to exist, no longer exist, that people said were really very important. So we have some empty lots. But of course, this building, many of you recognize as being near Winn-Dixie, and that was an important historic building that got relocated there. And now I'd like to point out this Smith Barber Shop, which is on Twin Beach Road. People repeatedly said this was incredibly significant for the community. It was a barbershop built by a World War II vet by hand, and cornerstone of the community. There are such barbershops listed on the National Historic Register because people understand that whatever size and shape the building is in, a place has importance for people in the community. So that was that site. This is the site that we built with a grant, and this is the site that I'm going to spend most of my time on. And it's an ArcGIS site, and this map here, it gives you a sense of what we will do moving forward. It's an interactive map, and you can click on sites, and you can read more. It opens up the history. But also what we did with this site was we highlighted work that other people have already done in African American history in our area. That includes Thema Todd, who sadly recently passed away, as well as many other people in this room. And so we saw ourselves as building on to work that had been done as opposed to starting something new. People have been talking about this history as long as Fairhope has existed, I imagine. Okay, so that was our goal. And then the oral histories I'll show you if we have time. So Alan suggested that maybe we do a little bit with oral history and then focus on our project, and that's a really big ask because there's a lot of early history to go through. And so I'm just going to point to this one example, and the question is that this example raises basically is who was here in Fairhope? What are the older populations that lived in Fairhope? How long were people here? And from what the data suggests, and again, many of you know this, is that Alabama was 50% African American or black following Civil War, and that Fairhope was also, this whole area, 50% followed that demographic. And then by the time Fairhope was incorporated in 1908, that demographic dropped to about 25%. And so there are several important questions historical questions that are raised. And Velma Todd did a bit of research into this, her own family, and so did Paul Gaston. So people who are around here and have read Paul Gaston, you know his major works on this subject was Irony and Utopia and Women of Fairhope, in which he identified Nancy Lewis. And what I would like to quickly say about those works is Gaston raised some questions about the Fairhope single tax colony decision to be segregated early in its years of founding. And he raised some questions about how did Fairhope single tax colony acquire titles to the land. And these are really complicated questions that people have been trying to answer across the country for a long time. And what I want to say is that people will continue to look into those questions and continue to develop answers, and that resources online are more available than they were even when Gaston was writing, because he used genealogical records that he had to go to the archive for. Now they're published. And I also want to say that the Single Tax Archive has really been making all this history transparent. And now to this point of the Nancy Lewis story, which I think most people here know about, but in case you don't, I'm just going to quickly review it, to say that Nancy Lewis, who was featured in Gaston's work, was a freed slave who came to Fairhope in 1970. And she was Velma Todd's ancestor, and I spoke with Velma in one of our oral histories that we were able to do with her before she passed. And I said, Velma, how did your family even know to come to Fairhope? Because they were from Mississippi. And to that question, I would like to point to this middle document here, and it is a muster roll call card from the U.S. colored troops during the Civil War. And a graduate student in the history department at South Alabama was researching the colored troops in the Blakely. And he discovered that John Lewis, there was a couple of Lewises that were part of that group. So I don't know, Velma and I had conversation about it, but we did not get to follow up. So I do not know whether she thinks this is her John Lewis, but I would like to suggest that it is a plausible way that people who are not from Fairhope discovered Fairhope. And I would also like to point out that he earned $26. So any person who served in the colored regiments, colored troops, so they called them in the Civil War, would have had hopefully money in their pocket if they were actually paid. And I also want to point to this book by Thavolia Glimpf. Thavolia Glimpf was the president of the American Historical Association, and she wrote about women during the Civil War and the struggles they faced. And she was one of the first historians to address the plight of black women who were caught up in the Civil War and emancipated. And the reason I think this book is very important to consider along with Nancy Lewis's story is because this was Nancy Lewis's story. So Gaston does not look at what happened, how did Nancy Lewis get from Mississippi to Fairhope. And this book helps fill in the gaps. And what Glimpse shows is that it was, of course, chaos in the Civil War, and chaos for particularly black women and children who did not have any protections of state. And then she also writes about the refugee camps that became almost like concentration camps, as things do in war when they're under-resourced in chaos. So the short story is, Nancy Lewis continues to be a very important and interesting person, and Gaston, as you all know, considered her a founder of Fairhope. And then, additionally, if you've not read the book, he also speculates and tries to trace how single tax acquired a plot of land that she farmed. And the question really, did she own it? Did she rent it from the original landowner? And how do you establish land ownership for a population that has existed in a location for 30 years after the Civil War who was disenfranchised? And even if he makes the point, even if they bought it, there would be record because they were not legally empowered. So it's a really complex history, and something that probably needs more research as more resources become available. But we can come back to that story. What I would like to tell you about our site then is what I already introduced. Those are historic markers, and then here is our little video we did not create, but other people did, and we just wanted to highlight that. We ended up focusing on this site on the Anna T. Jean School, which Shawn is going to talk about. And I do want to make this quick point. There is a single tax connection to the Anna T. Jean School, and that is that a single taxer by the name of Dillard, who was associated with the Quakers, also a single taxer, made the initial introduction between Anna T. Jean's, who was, I should say, Society of Friends, and the school. And so our website pulls in some of the primary evidence and publishes it from the Courier. And then the other, I'm skipping some pages, I'm just trying to tell y'all that what we add to the historical record. So what we also add to the historical record is some research on the fire in 1954. And so if you know anything about the history of the Anna T. Jean School, you know that it burned in 1954. And so this is, we spent some time trying to understand the nature of the fire. And I work on this with a couple of colleagues at South who are better experts than I am in U.S. history and in African American history. And what we concluded by looking at documentary evidence from Fairhope and Mobile and everywhere else is that there was a violent response to the Brown versus Board of Education decision, which happened in 1954. And so the Anna T. Jean School was burned completely by an arsonist, and there were two efforts to burn it. And the first effort did not succeed. It was addressed in the Fairhope Courier, and we included articles so people can read about that. And simultaneously, there was a fire in Mobile, or a vandalism in Mobile. There were other schools in the area that were attacked. So it was in a wave of violence. So we addressed that. And I'm accelerating so Shawn can have his part, but I also want to say with our oral histories, we focused on what people remembered. And that ended up being a lot of education history. And Vicki interviewed people with me, and all of these people very kindly communicated their experiences, positive and negative, if they chose to talk, whatever they chose to talk about life in Fairhope. And we spent quite a bit of time on segregation and integration. And so that's a segue to your work with Anna T. Jeans in South Fairhope.
All right. Can we give it up for her? All right. Good job. Okay. Let's get to it. What do you say? Okay. So let's see if this works. It works perfect. So I want to say that Hope Community exists because we felt like, honestly, when it comes down to it, we live in this society, but we don't always know who each other are and don't always get an opportunity to run into each other. So it's out of sight and it's out of mind, right? So you have this rich history that we just went over in our community. It's a shared community. If you never meet anyone or come across anyone who does not look like you, you may not even know that history, right, or even understand it. But essentially, people are having a human experience. That human experience consists of a few things. One is suffering. We know a little bit about suffering, right? Not only in the Fairhope South community, but guess who else who's been suffering? All of us have a form of suffering and pain that we deal with. That we all have as part of our human experience. There's also loneliness. At a certain point of your life, as a human, as part of your human experience, you are going to go through some period of loneliness as well. So that suffering, that loneliness, really kind of challenges us to feel like, what's the meaning of life? What's the meaning of this? What's the purpose of it, right? If we're going through a challenging time, whether it's a political season, whether it's, things that you kind of saw there on the screen in 1954 with Brown versus Board of Education and sort of how the community reacted at that time. But then you see now that we've changed things. And part of that reason that we've changed is we want to be that difference. We just felt like we can't wait on anybody else, people. Like the answer, the solution is inside of each one of you and each one of us. And so really how we started Hope Community in 2017 as a result of wanting to come together and find a way to unite the community, right? We couldn't wait on politicians. We can't wait on city leaders. We can't wait on somebody else. It's great talking about Dr. King and other people in the past, but wow, that's the past. What about now? Right? What are you doing to impact that? So what we feel like we do at Hope Community is offer a beacon of hope, but more importantly, a pathway for you to get engaged and make a difference, right? What did I say? Loneliness, suffering, right? We're dealing with pain. All of us are. And we all can be united in that. I don't know if you've heard of Viktor Frankl, but a big fan of Viktor Frankl. He invented logotherapy. And a lot of his work was an inspiration for me for Hope Community. And so he believed that we have a purpose in pain, and we should build community around that. We can build community. I mean, can you imagine that, right? Building community around our pain, finding common work that we can work together for a great purpose, right? And then we can get these better outcomes. So all of that is what we're doing, what some of you are doing within Hope Community, and some of you are doing it outside in other organizations that you might be involved in. But, it's important to know what we're about. So our goals are very simple and transparent. We want to preserve rich and local African American history, arts, and cultures, right? We don't want to be colorblind. We want to be open. We want to see each other. What's different about you should be inviting to me, can make my life a lot better, right? But if you don't know that, or if we don't get a chance to introduce that to each other, all of that's going to be lost. The opportunity to change the world or be the change in the world that we want to see is going to be lost. Okay? We want to revitalize. So there's a purpose and there's an intention here. So intentionality, revitalizing 103, I mean, look at that's beautiful, 103-year-old property, 14 acres, was a thriving school. By the way, it was rebuilt. I know we had a fire, but we worked through that as a community to rebuild it. We didn't let that be the end of our story, right? That's what we can say about our community. We may have had some bad actors, right? But it's never the whole community. It's never the whole community. So we work together and we've rebuilt that. Now we're on track to do community centers and create opportunities for growing and cooking healthy food. By the way, people ask at times, what is the food? What is that about? How are you doing preservation, and what does that have to do with preserving Fairhope South and Black history and all of that? Well, I don't know if any of you have noticed, but I've been to the grocery store, and I know what's very expensive, out of control. How about that's food? Very much out of control. One of the most impactful things from a cost perspective to underserve, all of us, by the way, right? So whether you have money or not, food is a price you think you can't control, you gotta eat, but it's going through the roof. The cost of it is out of this world. So what a better way to impact poverty, right? To impact people that are underserved, if we can teach you these old school rules of how we all used to do, not me, but people before me, but farm and growing food, right? And that used to be something that we did as a family. You know, we had an agricultural age where we could share and barter. We don't have that anymore, right? We've lost community. We've lost community, not only in this town, but in every town, in every state in this country. So it's our job, your jobs, everybody that I'm making eye contact with, it is your job to renew community. And it starts with you, and we can do it together. So there's a teaching farm that's on the works and in process that we need you to make an impact on. It might be your blood, your sweat, your tears. It may be your thought. It may be your leadership skills, your volunteer, whatever that might be. However you can contribute, we believe in valuing every person's contribution equally. So you'll see diverse food options. There's an opportunity for regenerative growing practices, farmers market, and even internships. So you see on there the education component. We want to change in the trajectory of our current chefs and cooks. So if we are cooking things better, there's better outcome on our health, better outcomes where we can save money, and we don't have to come to Fairhope to die. We can come here to live longer. How about that, right? I mean, we didn't work so hard. I mean, you heard from Alan, I'm working a lot here, but hopefully I'm not working so hard that I stay around here and I'm coming here to die. It's not that, okay? So the way to do that is that we could, if we teach you how to eat things differently, maybe, like Steve Jobs said, I can eat food as medicine and not eat medicine as food. That's what a lot of people are doing. A lot of us are doing that, right? So we want to help you get educated for that. We want to help you make better outcomes, take ownership of your life, of your outcomes, and job training. So for the young folks, high school people, college interns, there's opportunity for them to get engaged. So we want to impact younger folks as well, so that they can get from behind an iPad, get from behind technology and really put their hands in soil, build community, be around other people so that we can have this great knowledge transfer, and our kids know how to change a tire. They know how to bake, cook food, squash, right? They know that it's actually really food, that food isn't in a box that you have to take the plastic off and put in a microwave, right? I mean, that counts, don't get me wrong, but there's actually real whole foods, and it's so healing. It does so good for you. And so a part of what we do is really about healing, right? So you could come, there's several ways to get engaged. There's a cooking class, there's where we talk about local cuisines. I mentioned the word culture. Don't let that word scare you, okay? Culture isn't a bad thing. How many people love Mexican food? How many people love Italian? How many people love some soul food in here? If you've ever had fried chicken, black people invented fried chicken. So you can talk about culture all you want. If that scares you, stop eating fried chicken. And no one will stop eating fried chicken, right? So don't be afraid of it. We want to make it to where we're open and comfortable. I think pretty soon here we're going to learn how to make sushi. I love sushi, right? I would love to learn how to make it instead of just rely on Master Joe, right? He does a great job. I love it. But I would love to make sushi at home. So we're getting to learn about great cultures that we all have, and we're celebrating the best in us, right? And we want you to come and be a part of that. Our impact, this is important. So what does a community garden, what does rebuilding community really do, right? Are we just getting together, having fun, kumbaya? Are we really making a difference? So just a few things here that we've identified. So there's, preserving a history, preserving a culture in an area that's been underserved. All that does is lifts up property values for everybody else. That sounds like a win for everybody. I don't know about you, but it's definitely a win for me. Provide a community gathering space, so if we have more public open space where people can come together and get to know each other like we're doing here, but right in different parts and different cross sections of our communities, we're going to be better off, right? We're not going to be worse. We'll be doing better. I could tell you there's a gap in, when I say knowledge transfer, like the baby boomers and beyond, which some of us are in here, there's a missing gap of transferring all that great knowledge and wisdom that y'all have. I mean, oh my gosh, great knowledge and wisdom to the next generation and the next generation. Well, folks, that's not happening. How do we have a country if we don't have you around other people that may be younger or older, may look different, may be male or female, but we need you, right? This is a way to get engaged and share that knowledge, share that rich history before it's lost forever, right? Fostering inclusion, right? Some people say, well, what's the benefit on inclusion? So at our company, we practice inclusion and we do better financially when we do that because we get alternative perspectives, right? It's not just about like my perspective or my what I'm thinking about. It's about what the other person and their perspective and their viewpoint, that could actually make my life and our organization and everything in our community operate better. Reduce crime. How many want to sign up for that? I'm all about that. Develop life skills. Expand accessibility to arts. Some of our schools are losing that. The opportunity to have arts and physical education is being lost. Address food insecurity. I know we have a lot of green space, but there's not a lot of growing in that green space, right? We actually are importing food from other countries. Other companies take food from us, right? So we have this food desert. We have 18-wheelers going right across areas that we can be growing things for ourselves and feed each other and feed ourselves, right? So there's awesome opportunity. This would be like akin to Texas that has all that oil, right? We have all of this beautiful agricultural land where we can be growing food and servicing our community, servicing ourselves, driving down pricing, right? Making it more accessible. So increase physical fitness, reduce chronic illness. There's things that you can eat. Man, we're learning from our nutritionists and our dietitians about what we can eat to fight inflammation, cancer, preventative measures that you can do in your food, and it actually still tastes delicious, because that's my requirement. I don't want to eat anything. I may take the medicine if the food doesn't taste good. So I assure you that we have a lot of great people that are putting together the best way to cook something that make it taste well. Not only good for you, but good to your soul. Provide pathways for employment, as we talked about earlier, from opportunities to be a chef or come up with your own business around food. Practice environmental stewardship. We just want to take care of God's great creation and be good stewards of it, and really hoping to leave it better off than we've received it. That's such a big deal for me. I hope we have people in this room that care about leaving a place better off than it was left to you. That really resonates for me big time. And that's going to be a little bit harder for me to do at this point, but we're going to absolutely get there. Can anybody clap for that? I mean, we're going to get there. I mean, I'm inspired about that. I hope y'all are too. I mean, I really am. We want to contribute to the beautification of that area. So wherever you have rundown buildings and stuff like that, typically you have, and I grew up around that area, you can have drugs and you can have just crime and things like that take place. Again, I don't want at any part of anybody's yard or residence or community where kids play, right? Innocent children are playing. I don't want there to be abandoned buildings, drugs, needles, alcohol, just crime. I don't want to have anything like that take place. I don't have to live there. I just don't want it in your neighborhood either, by the way, right? So we should care about that, because if that's where crime goes, it's still a little bit too close to my house, okay? It's too close to my house. I don't want people to have to go through your community, through my community, to go and do crime. That's just probably not a recipe for success. So we should care about it because it impacts us. And again, these are areas that we can really make a difference in right now. Let's see. So get involved. That's the call to action. There's things that we have going on. There's a cultural museum that we're setting up in one of the wings in the buildings on site there. We're going to use it for event space, not just for black people, like for everybody, okay? We're just celebrating the history that, by the way, blacks and white came together and poured money into Anna T. Jean together. This was like in the 1940s. This wasn't common. They said Alabama was segregation tomorrow, segregation now. Remember that? But we were here in Little Fairhope just working together. That's what you were doing. Working together to get that private African-American school at a time where public funds wasn't fair to black people at that time, right? So there wasn't a lot of opportunity for that. So we had to step up as a society and just care and take action, right? Because it's just the right thing. It doesn't matter what color the person is. We want everybody to be educated. Gosh, right? So that's what people felt like. And we're carrying on that tradition of togetherness and working together. Political parties aside, race, religion, we don't care what church you go to or don't go to. We just want you to come in and participate in your community, because you never know when you might not need that person next door. Health classes, administrative office, our vision. So Hope Community envisions a thriving, and tell me if you disagree with this, then you can just say, Shawn, I hate this, and walk out of the door. But if you agree with it, just listen to it. I think it's a great vision, but you tell me. A thriving and interconnected community which fosters sustainable and resilient living, and where all individuals have access to locally sourced healthy foods, employment opportunity, no matter what your age is, and cultural enrichment around food. Food brings us together. Food can bring us together. It can save us as well. It can really save us. So there's a QR code right there if you want to figure out how to contribute in any way, shape, or form. We have a website down below there, hopecommunityal.org. Let's keep hope growing, and let's do it together. Thank you. If you haven't seen the property, if you've ever been to the property, it's on Fairhope, it's on Section Street and County Road 48, Twin Beach Road. And so that's the design that we're coming up with. It's in the making right now. What you see right there at the bottom is our partnership with the City of Fairhope and the Community Foundation to build the largest splash pad in the area. So we're really excited about that, right? You can clap for that. So why a splash pad right there for the community is right now, if you've been by there, there's not a lot of great things there. But whenever you're in a community, don't you want to feel proud of something? Like I said before, loneliness, suffering, right? Those are bad things. That's part of the human experience. What if you can make that human experience a little bit better with a splash pad? Kids can come and play. Parents could be right there with them. You see that fantastic walking trail, heritage markers where you kind of learn a little bit about what blueberries could do to your body to make it better. And also, by the way, that used to be a sugarcane farm owned by an African-American family, many, many years ago that was actually given away to the state and to the school system for, what was it, like $1,000? No, it was $1,000? $1,000.
$30,000 today.
Yeah. So, and it was meant for education. So that was someone saying, hey, we'll take 14, 15 acres and just donate it to the community for African-American education. I mean, we're okay with that. So super generous. And so we're carrying that torch, folks. We're carrying that same torch for them today. So a splash pad, it'll be an opportunity for us to plant and garden, both raised bed and in ground. As you see over to the far left, there's a teaching kitchen. There's going to be a farm stand, and then the original building, which is number 4 there, that's the only building that still is there today. It's going to have to be renovated, but as you can see there, an opportunity to have some space, some working space, fellowship space, and we just want to have some areas to bring community together. So. Again, thank you again. Appreciate you for being here today. Any questions?
What family owned the sugarcane plantation?
It was the Hankins Smith family actually owned it. African-American family that owned it. They had a lot of acres, and it was about 5 or 6 families. My mom's family and I was one of those families. There's a few of us. Oh, my aunt back there. Oh my gosh, she's right there. So I should be saying her because she's there. But anyway, that family sold part of their land to the state for the education of African Americans. Good question. What else?
I understand that 1 acre, I believe, has not been leased by the city to Hope Community.
Yeah. So, great question. So this is a little bit, in business, we update things a lot, right? And so that first acre should be taken off. That's actually ours, okay? But the middle and the third, that 1 acre, then the 6.25. So the city is retaining 1.625 acres for the splash pad. And so the city's going to have that piece of it. We really don't want to manage a splash pad, okay? And nor do we really want the water bill of the splash pad. So the city, full ownership of that, and they're going to maintain that. And the parking lot area will be Hope Communities, okay? And will be shared with the splash pad as well. Good question. What else? Again, the website, www.hopecommunityal.org. Get involved, people. You're very much welcome. We're for everybody, by the way. So if you are a body, you're invited.
Public meeting?
Is the renovation or the rebuilding of the NDT school
Yes.
building itself going to restore the building to be an historic property?
That is something that we are definitely taking into account and prioritizing. So the answer to that question is, with all purpose and intent, we are trying to maximize the historical value of that property, or the building itself. But the property, and maybe Mara could speak a little bit more to that. I know in our research, I know it's already considered. We have a ball in county, and I think are we pursuing a state level?
It's already listed at the state register, and now that it's gone to the city, it can be taken to the national.
Yep. So it's already today, regardless of what happens to the building, it's still considered that. Now, we do want to preserve as much as possible, which is why we're trying to build around, or the goal, as you can see, is to not tear it down and build some monstrosity. And also, as you see, this is a 100% community center, like community center, not houses. So no one is going to be living in anything. It's really meant for all of the community. Was there a question over here? Okay.
I was just wanting to clarify, so you're getting the recognition at the state and federal level so you can get some funding to, restore that building, correct?
Yeah, so we are going after funding now and have won some funding as well historically. But also we are doing fundraising. So anybody and everybody's welcome to contribute to Hope Community for the restoration and the renovation of that property and that building specifically. We do have people that have interests in contributing and donating, private donors and private foundations, as well as grants and opportunities like that. There's actually national grant opportunities for historical renovation. They are capped at certain dollar amounts as well. So it takes a concerted effort with everybody and everyone who cares about each other and care about this particular project and have funds left over, right? Whether it's $5 or $5 million. We have people from all over who care about it enough to contribute whatever they can.
You might want to mention we have a public meeting a week from tonight.
Yes, so I'm going to invite our new president.
Oh, gosh.
How about that? Our new president, Miss Susan Fontaine, please.
Okay.
Give it up for Susan.
Hard act to follow, yeah. So we are there's a lot going on. It's really exciting, as Shawn has mentioned. But we do have a public meeting a week from tonight at the UMC Christian Life Center. And our focus is going to be Rebecca Bryant, who is an architect and owns Watershed and has done a lot of our site renderings, or all of them actually. She will be speaking and casting the vision for this property and going into detail and available for Q&A. So I think you might be interested in that. And then also John Fitzgerald, who is our VP and treasurer, will be talking about some of the grants we're going after and some of the aspects of fundraising. So that's an open meeting. It starts at 5:30, and you're all invited. And and then there's some other exciting things going on. We're going to be having a health fair at the Anna T. Jean's property March 29th, and really hoping to be able to do that on a regular basis and have it right there in the neighborhood. And so we would love to have you visit and come to the Tuesday meeting and get to know people and see where you might fit into a committee or where you might like to volunteer.
I understand that Maker's Mark is going to be out there too.
Yes, that's one of the exciting things. The Mobile Bay Makers Market will be there on the Anna T. Jean's property every other Sunday, beginning March 23rd, right? Thank you for that. And I think it's an exciting way to just, see things going on at the property, and so that way people come out and get to meet new people and visit, and that's part of the desire. We want to see this a very active property with a lot going on. Yes?
The meeting next week, what is UMC?
I'm so sorry. Thank you for that. The United Methodist Church. All these acronyms we live with, right? In our world, it's like a foreign language, right? Thank you for that. Yes, the United Methodist Church, Fairhope Methodist Church, which is at the corner of Morphy and Section Street. And in the back, they have a beautiful building called the Christian Life Center. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks, Shawn.
So go to the website. You can get a lot of that information if you didn't get that all jotted down, because I don't see a lot of notepads. I'm a bit disappointed in this generation here. Where are your notepads? Where are your paper? I heard phones ringing. What are you doing with phones? I thought I was like in the teenagers area. What is this? I thought I was with a room full of teenagers, got phones ringing and stuff. Okay. But anyway, we'd love for you to be involved, love for you to join us. And Alan, I think that's it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks to both of them, great. And please, get involved, it's a great organization. Just want to, April 15th, next month, is Fairhope Police Chief Stephanie Hollinghead is our speaker, so keep that one on your list as well. She's going to she's going to talk about what she's going to talk about, so come and listen. Thank you all, appreciate it.
Thanks.